Good morning, everyone. It's so wonderful to see you all here this morning. How are you all feeling? Ça va bien? Yeah? Wonderful. I hope you're all enjoying the conference so far. So my name is Alexander Maxon. I have been given the honor of introducing our next speakers. They're all researchers I have looked up to since I first got involved in Huntington disease research about a decade ago. Founded in 2011, HDBuzz is the first internet portal for the rapid dissemination of high-quality Huntington disease research news to the global community. Writing in plain language we can all understand, these HD clinicians and scientists cover laboratory and clinical research to help everyone in the HD community understand the latest scientific developments. Their content is used as news feeds by many HD organizations, and it is translated into more languages than I can even name. Unfortunately, Dr. Sarah Hernandez, the Director of Research Programs at the Hereditary Disease Foundation, was unable to attend today. I hope you all join me in welcoming three brilliant researchers who should need no introduction. Professor Ed Wild, Professor of Neurology at University College London, Institute of Neurology, Associate Director of the UCL Huntington's Disease Center, and Consultant Neurologist at the National Hospital of Neurology and Neurosurgery, Dr. Jeff Carroll, Associate Professor at the Department of Neurology at University of Washington, and Dr. Rachel Harding, Assistant Professor in the Department of Pharmacology and Toxicology and a primary investigator at the Structural Genomics Consortium, University of Toronto. I'm sure you're all looking forward to this as much as I am, so without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to HDBuzz. Oh, wait.
Good morning.
Good morning. Being told off already.
Audience participation is not
Down in front.
permitted, particularly from you, sir. Well, so it's lovely to be here after a long break. Great to be back together. We always like to do a bit of a theme for our talks, and in trying to come up with a theme, Jeff actually combed back through the archives to what is actually the very first time that we did anything together on stage. I'll show you a video. This is from the World Congress, Vancouver, 2009, and that's the inspiration for today. So this was the birth of HDBuzz, basically. Charles brought us together. Look at him, so young. but like a fine wine, he's often drunk. Wait till you see the reporters, though.
Ooh, so skinny.
Jeff, the skinny beanpole, and Ed, the frozen embryo.
Oh,
Harry Potter look-alike.
That's not a still photo. I was genuinely too terrified to move.
Look at the hairline.
HDBuzz began as the evening news, and so for our post-COVID reunion tour, we are reuniting nearly the whole team. Charles is not involved, you'll be pleased to hear. But we're rebooting the evening news franchise, so we proudly present HDBuzz presents the HSC 2023 Evening News, hosted by Ed Wild, live from Nicaragua. Yes, when I found out that the HSC 2023 annual convention was going to be here in Nicaragua, I was surprised, to say the least. But then I looked at the Wikipedia article and I noticed that it's the largest country in Central America with a mixed ethnicity population of 6 million. From its towering volcanic highlands to its sweeping Pacific coastlands. Join me in celebrating Nicaragua's main exports, coffee and tobacco, and its national dish, gallo pinto, which is beans and rice.
Small note, it's Niagara.
What?
Sorry, hang tight.
No. I got the train to Nicaragua. I remember it. They said it. Okay.
This is going to go terrible.
There's. Can we think of that? Okay. Niagara! They're telling me they can't change the music, so we have to have the Nicaraguan national anthem for the whole session. Sorry about that. How cool was that, though, that they lit up that big waterfall in blue and purple for HD? Amazing. Okay, so it's the news, the HDBuzz research news, and I'd like to introduce the news team. Dr. Rachel Harding, who will be reporting on what has happened. Dr. Jeff Carroll, who will be reporting on what's next. And since that was supposed to be Sarah Hernandez, you'll be pleased to hear that Sarah sent her hair so that she will be physically represented here throughout the session. And we'll be joined with exclusive live video footage by Leora Fox, reporting from outside the box. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I present the news headlines. Highs and lows for Huntington lowering trials. Results of the Proof HD trial of predopidine. Valbenazine emerges as a new career treatment. A new generation tominersen trial underway. CAGs in the crosshairs. Stopping Huntington with a pill. And so, for our first segment, we will go to Rachel Harding to hear about what's happened. Now, Rachel, you're going to be talking first about the highs and lows of Huntington lowering trials. And this, I think, will touch on some of the HD 101 that we may need to familiarize ourselves with. So am I right in thinking that Huntington's is a genetic disease, and in most cases, people with HD will have inherited one normal copy of the HD gene and one expanded copy of the HD gene?
Ed, you are absolutely correct. Thank you for bringing that to everyone's attention. This is right. So just to recap a bit of HD 101 for everyone. Most folks who have Huntington's disease will have inherited one copy of the HD gene from either their mum or their dad.
And what is the HD gene? What does it actually do? Is it just an ornament?
No. So the HD gene is actually, everyone has a gene called Huntington. And what makes the HD gene a little bit different is that Huntington gene just has a bit of extra DNA at the very, very beginning. But other than that, everyone has the Huntington gene.
I'm so sorry. I'm just a little bit distracted by what's happening to your left.
What?
This whole situation. I hadn't figured it would be in my eye line for our banter,
would you like me to
our
stand
banter segment.
like
If you could fully obscure him, that would be very helpful. And
Do you find me more attractive than you thought you would?
it's very much a sort of mixed emotions situation for me.
Yeah, I would agree.
So this HD gene, are we targeting the gene directly, the DNA directly with drugs, or not?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe in the future there are all kinds of things that might happen with emerging genetic technologies, but right now what we're going to talk about is targeting the message molecule that is made as a copy of the Huntington gene, and this message gets turned into the Huntington protein.
And am I right in thinking that there are 3 basic ways in which Huntington-lowering drugs can be delivered?
Ed, you are absolutely correct. So today what we're going to talk about in our headlines are 3 different approaches for targeting the Huntington message molecule. The first of which are things called ASOs, which are delivered in the spine. And these are small pieces of DNA that target the message molecule directly. And then we have other things, which are gene therapies. These are kind of a one-shot delivery of a drug directly into the brain via surgery to turn off the message molecule. And then we finally have small molecules, which are tablets taken by mouth that also target the message molecule of Huntington.
All molecules are quite small, though, aren't they?
Yes, some molecules are smaller than others,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. That was a very worthwhile thing
commenting
to
on that.
add. Yeah, good. And bring us up to speed, please. What's been happening since the last time we met together?
Absolutely, Ed. So I think we can all in this room acknowledge that since the last time we all got together in Kelowna, there's been a lot of news on Huntington lowering, and not all of it has been especially good. So as folks will probably remember, in March of 2021, we had really quite sad news that the Roche trial, which was testing the ASO tominersen, had to be halted due to safety reasons. And what we actually learned when we started looking at the data in more detail is that folks who got more of the drug actually ended up doing worse than folks who had the placebo. And this is kind of the last thing that you want to happen in a clinical trial, and that's why things got stopped very suddenly. But out of this really quite sad news, and we all really felt that at the time, especially when we were stuck on Zoom during COVID, some good news has come out of this. So what the folks at Roche did next is something called a post hoc analysis. And so what this means is that they look at all the data that they collect from the clinical trial, and then they try to see what kind of information they're able to tease out of it. But the important thing to note is that this is not what the study is designed to do. And so any kind of findings that we get from this, we've got to be a little bit careful. But what they did see, as Ed brings up the next slide, is that if we look at everyone all together in the trial, we can see that the more drug that was given, so the more frequent dosing of this drug tominersen, folks did not do so well. But when we look at people who were younger in the trial or they had a lower CAG number, it seems that actually people who received the more infrequent dose of tominersen actually stabilized their symptoms, and it doesn't seem like there's much change. Although at the moment this is not proven, and so we kind of need to do a little bit more work on this.
And Ray Truant yesterday mentioned something about a potential dosing issue. It looks like there was basically just too much drug given, or that the brains couldn't cope with the amount that was given. Is that about right?
Yeah, so I mean that's one hypothesis that will need to be tested. So it could just be there was too much drug, and it kind of caused things to go like not in the way that we had intended. And so one way to try and test this is maybe we'll just try another trial with a little bit less of the drug.
Cool.
Great, and then in other news that we had, this is unfortunately another low point for the news since we met in 2018, was the results from WAVE. So WAVE also have an ASO delivered by spinal tap for lowering Huntington levels. But their way of doing it is a little bit different to how Roche does it. So the Roche drug will target both types of the Huntington message molecule, both the regular one and the one in folks who have Huntington's disease. But the WAVE molecule is designed, the drug is designed to only target the HD version of this molecule. So the idea is that then you might not have as many side effects from taking this kind of drug. But unfortunately what happened was when we looked at the data, we actually couldn't see the drug working at all. So nothing bad really happened other than the fact that the drug didn't work. And so, yeah, that wasn't such good news either. But we should all stay tuned, because the good news that came out of this is that both of these companies are still committed to working on Huntington's disease, and later on in our program we're going to be giving you all kinds of updates on what these companies are doing now.
And what about these very small molecules? What's the deal there?
Yeah, so we had a trial that was run by Novartis to test a drug called branaplam. And so what's important to remember is that branaplam was never actually designed to work on Huntington's disease. It was actually a drug that was designed for another type of neurodegenerative disorder called SMA. And this is a drug that's taken by mouth, and they... Oh!
I've had to ring the bell. You may remember Charles introduced the bell that he would ring, the little bell that he would ring. I forgot to bring it, so I've got this metal ball instead. And I'll ring this every time you say something that needs further explanation.
I do apologize.
Please explain what you mean by SMA.
So it's spinal muscular atrophy. And so this is a kind of similar disease to Huntington's, but it affects very young children.
Thank you.
And so this drug was designed for SMA, spinal muscular atrophy.
It's all right, we know it now.
But what they noticed when they were looking at the data was this drug actually lowered the levels of the Huntington protein. And so they thought, okay, well, let's try and run a trial on this. Unfortunately, this did not end as we had hoped, and actually folks in the trial experienced quite bad side effects. There's something called peripheral neuropathy. Queuing you up there, which is just sort of like nerve damage in the kind of tips of your fingers and in your toes. So that's not good news. So that trial was also halted, and this was another sort of low point for Huntington lowering trial news.
But there's more news from the world of small molecules coming up.
Exactly, exactly. There are other things happening in this space which we're excited to tell you about later.
And would I be right in saying, Rachel, that science never sleeps?
No, definitely not.
Well, I wouldn't be right in saying that.
Oh no, I mean, oh sorry, I go there all mixed around.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
Probably we should have rehearsed that bit.
Science does never sleep.
Okay,
and,
good. That's confirmed.
Yeah. All around the world, there are scientists working on all kinds of different Huntington-lowering therapies and other therapies that might help folks with Huntington's disease. And one of those that we're going to tell you about now, which is super exciting, is from a company called uniQure. And this is one of these one-shot gene therapy approaches that we mentioned earlier, which is a brain surgery, and there's a special virus that's injected into the brain that spreads through the brain and then tells the cells in your brain to stop making the Huntington protein. So this is amazing technology. And back in 2021, the very first person was treated in the US. And this trial actually proceeded really slowly, because you can imagine with something that's so new and like potentially quite challenging to work with, it was like, we've got to take slow steps to make sure that everything is safe. And then eventually more and more people were enrolled. There was a small pause last year just because of some safety concerns, where some folks immediately after having the surgery had some quite bad side effects from the surgery, but they have since recovered. And more work is being done in this, and more folks have been enrolled to take part in this trial. And actually, I should mention, Ed, that this is actually two trials. So there are two things happening at the same time. One of them is in Europe, and the other one is in the States. They both have, as you can see, quite a small number of people in each, and they're getting different doses of the drug. The difference is that in the American version, there's like a dummy control, like a placebo. That doesn't happen in the European one. But we got some recent data from this, and the most important thing really is that because it's still really at the early stages of trying to get this trial, trying to figure out if this trial's working or not, and it's really a small number of people. So, you know, scientists like to talk about what is statistically significant, and that's really hard to do at this stage. But the thing that's really good news is that everyone in the trial is doing fine. Like, we basically told all the cells in their brain to stop making as much Huntington protein, and they seem to be doing okay, and that's really, really good. So what we're hoping to hear next is just how much the Huntington is changing, and whether, you know, how these people are doing in the longer term.
Yeah, so it's a much more kind of slow burning thing than the trials that we're
Absolutely.
used to in the field.
Yeah.
So we just have to be patient, I guess.
As best as we can, yeah.
And what's next?
What's next?
Another headline.
Another headline. So for quite a while now, a company called Prolenia has been testing a drug called predopidine to see how this changes symptoms by different kind of metrics that clinicians use to see whether people with HD get better or they stabilize. And in a most recent trial, this is a big phase 3 trial that ran for quite a long time called Proof HD, where folks were taking predopidine. Unfortunately, we were given the news earlier this year that this trial did not meet its primary or its secondary endpoints. And so that was pretty disappointing. But again, similar to the folks at Roche who went back and they're going to look at the data and try and figure out like what is the path forward, the folks at Prolenia are doing the same, and they're regrouping to see, you know, is there like a subpopulation of people maybe we need to treat earlier, or something that needs to be a little bit different to see if we can get something out of this trial.
They don't dance on the news, Rachel. They stand very
serious
still
journalist,
with
obviously.
serious face.
But finally, we're going to end on some good news, and this is going to talk about valbenazine. So this was a trial run by Neurocrine, which is called Connect HD, and this is a drug that has actually already been approved for another kind of movement disorder, and it basically makes the chorea or the movement symptoms of Huntington's a little bit better. And so because we already knew this drug was safe in another group of people, we had a big trial that was run to see like how folks with HD would be if they were taking this drug. And the really good news is that it works and people's movement symptoms were better, and this drug has actually been approved by the FDA. So that's a great success to have something else in the arsenal for HD treatment.
Finally, some good news in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm very excited to introduce our first special segment by our roving reporter, Dr. Leora Fox, who's going to be joining us from somewhere on Earth. Now, if the live video link works, hopefully Leora will appear. Leora, hello.
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 Ed.
Yes.
Jeff.
Hello.
Rachel.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us? We're
Excellent. Well, good morning, HSC attendees. I'm making my way to Niagara to be with you today. And my starting point is the opposite end of North America, dry and sunny Albuquerque, New Mexico, where I am standing in the bosque, the forest by our famous body of water, the Rio Grande. And it's fitting that I'm among these very stately cottonwood trees because our first out-of-the-box story about HD research concerns plants. Now, you may be asking why plants have anything to do with Huntington's disease, but we know that plants can live a very long time and that they're stuck right where they are. So when any environmental challenge comes their way, like burning sun, or bugs, or pollution, or freezing cold weather, they've had to evolve to respond to that stress. So for that reason, their biology is interesting to scientists because they might hold the key to some resilience against disease. A group of scientists from Germany recently created plants containing the expanded Huntington gene that causes HD. They hope to better understand how these resilient weeds called Arabidopsis would respond to the unusual stress of the extra long piece of the Huntington protein. What they found was fascinating. When they put these HD plants under stressful conditions like high heat, the expanded Huntington protein formed clumps the same way it does in animal and human cells, and these clumps gathered around chloroplasts. Plants use chloroplasts to capture light so that they have the energy to produce food and grow. Within these chloroplasts are specialized machinery that helps to maintain balance in the cell and can clean up and remove damaged or toxic proteins. In this study, the scientists found that chloroplasts were able to scoop up the HD protein when it was nearby and then remove it. If their chloroplasts were disabled, the plants couldn't remove the toxic clumps. The team also identified an enzyme that was particularly important for this process, and they used genetic techniques to introduce this enzyme to HD cells in a dish and to HD worms, and found fewer Huntington clumps and better movement of the worms. Although this is not ready to be made into a treatment for HD, all of this goes to show that plants are amazing, HD scientists have wacky ideas, and when you put them together, we find new avenues for treating brain disease. I'm Leora Fox, and I'll see you on the next leg of my journey.
Thanks, Leora. Travel safely. And now, because this is the evening news, it's time for a commercial break. Please welcome our special guest star, Tam Mayuri.
You know, Tam, I just can't decide if I should get the butter tarts with or without the raisins.
Rachel, I have totally had that problem until I discovered Enroll HD.
What's Enroll HD?
Well, Enroll HD is a global observational Huntington's disease study. Enroll HD has already empowered big discoveries about Huntington's disease, like major genetic differences that could be a source of future treatments. Enroll HD is improving clinical care by helping us understand the disease and deliver care to patients in the community. And finally, Enroll HD is already speeding up clinical trials and research into our understanding of HD.
Ask your doctor whether Enroll HD is right for you. Side effects of Enroll HD may include a sense of satisfaction about helping the HD community, increased contact with the HD clinic team, increased chances of taking part in a clinical trial, reimbursement for real-world expenses, and opportunities with research projects. Enroll HD is not directly affiliated with HDBuzz. It's an unpaid promotional message. The Enroll HD team is involved in various commercial, other disinformation, but
Tam, what's Enroll HD got to do with butter tarts?
Oh, it has nothing to do with butter tarts. Anyone can participate.
Good. And so welcome back. I hope that you enjoyed the break. And we go immediately back to Leora Fox to see where she is in her epic journey across these great countries of North America. Leora, where are you?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent. I'm back.
Uh-huh.
As you can see, I'm making progress across the United States because here I am in the comparatively freezing tundra that is Chicago, Illinois. And I won't let you in on the secret technology that has enabled this light speed travel. But I do want to tell you about a new technological advance in the field of HD that is driving major discoveries. Scientists can now zoom in on the brain down to the single cell level to understand which genes are being turned off in each cell of each type in each area of the brain. Thanks to the extraordinary people with HD and their family members who have chosen to donate their brains after they pass, HD researchers have been able to examine that brain tissue for differences between single cells. The brain is a large and complicated organ, and we have known since the 1800s that a particular area of the brain called the striatum is the most vulnerable in Huntington's disease. But more than 200 years later, the advent of single-cell technology and the tissue donations of HD family members have led to a deeper understanding of the DNA changes that are driving that vulnerability. By understanding those changes, we may be better able to create drugs to correct them and keep people healthier for longer. I've got more to share on that topic, but I'm feeling a gust of icy wind.
Okay. Well, we'll hopefully rejoin Leora in due course and see where that gust of icy wind has blown her. And with that, I think we'll hand over to our next segment, our intrepid What's Next reporter, Jeff Carroll.
First, I have some breaking news. Tam Mowry's family will be losing a wig because I feel strangely comfortable in this and think that I'll be leaving the conference in this. Sorry, Tam. Yeah, that deserved the anthem. Yeah. So as we keep saying, and I know this sounds a little bit repetitive, but right, one of the goals here is to just keep reminding people, you guys are trying to take a lot of information right now, and it's a lot of SMAs and ASOs, and just a reminder, there's at least 4 companies working on just the idea of Huntington lowering, which is just one of the major approaches scientists are taking towards trying to treat HD. There's other ones that we'll talk about later. So we'll talk in more detail about Roche, who still continues to test that ASO tominersen in this new study, a company called Vico Therapeutics, who's also in the clinic with another ASO, Wave Therapeutics that we mentioned already, and we'll talk more about what their plans are. And then finally, some more details about this small molecule, a new small molecule to replace the Novartis program, branaplam, by a company called PTC Therapeutics, which is currently in trials. So at least 4 different trials happening. And just a brief mention, in Croatia, we couldn't even fit in the slide, in Croatia this year at a HD Therapeutics conference, another company, Alnylam, announced the first ever Huntington lowering program with a whole other technology for lowering called RNAi, or RNA interference. So we can't even fit who's working on Huntington lowering onto one slide anymore. So What's happening with tominersen? We talked about the bad news. Obviously, I remember I wrote that HDBuzz piece sitting in the backyard of my house in the middle of the pandemic, and that was, I know it hit your inbox, a lot of you, and you were depressed. I was very depressed writing it. We were in the same place. It was a dark, dark moment. But it was really amazing to watch Roche methodically go through the data and look at it and see if there was any possible subgroups, as Rachel mentioned, that had actually had a benefit. And intuitively, I think, as an HD family member, it makes a lot of sense that people on the more mild end of the spectrum of disease might be more amenable to rescue, and their brains might be more resilient to the dosing of a drug like an ASO. So there's a new trial. Rather than walking away, which is my huge fear when I was sitting in my backyard writing this buzz story, thinking, man, Roche is going to walk and we're going to lose 5 years waiting for someone to come do this. It's not what happened. Roche looked at the data and decided that what they would do instead is to launch a new trial, a step back from the 700-person gigantic phase 3 study that they had just had to halt, do a targeted redesign of a new study using basically, think about what Ray's comment yesterday about the dose makes the drug or a poison, right? So what if we did less frequent dosing, lower dose, and especially focused on those people who are at the earlier end of the spectrum as a sort of a proof of concept that this ASO approach could still work. There was hints in that data that this could be the case, and so this Generation HD2 trial is going to be run by Roche soon.
How about now?
Oh yeah, enrolling now, sorry.
Wow, it just started. No, it's been underway for several
Time
months,
travel.
Jeff. We covered this in the rehearsal. What's next?
Another really exciting trial, and this one's really exciting because this goes beyond HD. So there's a company, a small Dutch company called Vico Therapeutics. Most of you probably haven't heard of them because I hadn't until they made an announcement. They have another antisense drug, an ASO, as we call it, like tominersen, but instead of targeting somewhere else in the Huntington gene, it actually targets the CAG repeats themselves. Now remember, everyone has a Huntington gene, like Rachel said. There's a long stretch of CAGs, even in healthy people that don't have HD. It's just that that's expanded. Vico had the idea of making an ASO just to the CAGs, and for reasons that are maybe beyond the scope of the nightly news, that drug can be selective for just the mutant copy of the HD gene. And
Okay. This is not part of our presentation.
that was weird, right? On YouTube, we'll just cut that part out if that's okay with everybody.
And just cut straight to the part where we say on YouTube we'll cut that part out.
Yeah, that's mark on that.
Okay.
Hi.
Hello.
How you doing?
Great.
Welcome back to the evening news. Before we were so rudely interrupted, Jeffrey was talking about a new ASO drug which will... Why is the floor rumbling? Never mind,
Yeah.
we've had worse. A new ASO drug that targets CAG repeats. Jeff, what's this got to do with the picture of a basket?
Okay, we've established Huntington's disease is caused by this expansion of a CAG repeat. But actually, it's not the only disease that's caused by that type of mutation. There's at least 9 human diseases that are caused by CAG expansions in different genes. Huntington's disease is just one of them. There are 2 spinocerebellar ataxia, type 1 and
What is a spinocerebellar ataxia?
It's a related disease similar to HD in some ways in that it's a progressive adult onset movement disorder, but it causes dysfunction of the cerebellum in the back of the brain instead of deep in the brain like HD, so that people have ataxia rather than chorea.
What is ataxia?
I don't know, if only I had a neurologist to ask.
Stop saying words.
No more words, Jeff.
Is there a neurologist over there?
We'll just move on. They're related diseases.
So because this ASO targets the CAGs themselves, it in theory could work for any of these diseases. And in fact, Vico has decided to do something very unique called a basket trial, like a basket in the sense of like gathering things together. So they're having HD patients in this trial, as well as patients with the types of ataxia called SCA1 and SCA3. And so this phase 1 study will be done in September next year, 2025. And really exciting, the first time the same drug is being tested in multiple indications, including HD.
What about WAVE?
So WAVE continues. We heard about the disappointing news also after the tominersen announcement during the midst of the pandemic, but WAVE has persisted actually with kind of a new and improved chemistry version of their ASO or antisense drug that targets the Huntington gene. And what's unique about WAVE's approach is that using some kind of genetic trickery, it only targets the mutant copy of the HD gene. Remember, everyone has one copy from mom, one from dad, and the HD mutation almost always only occurs in one of those. And so WAVE's approach is to be a little bit more selective and only get rid of the mutant gene, which in theory, for some reasons, could be better. And we'll see as they complete their ongoing trial. So they have a trial, Select HD, testing this new and improved approach.
So 3 ASO trials all happening in parallel.
That's
and
right.
in 2015 was the first time we ever did an ASO trial in HD. So
it's almost become like, oh yeah, ASOs lower
Right.
Huntington. It's like, this is a mind-blowing, amazing thing that's never happened.
But all of that is still a needle in the back for every dose of drug.
That's
So what about these elusive small molecules?
So little local...
And please tie it directly to Niagara Falls, which is where we are.
We try to keep it local for the people,
Yeah.
you know. Rachel told me that they shut off the falls. And I was like, that's, I mean, obviously ridiculous. You can't shut off a waterfall. And I Googled it because I don't believe people. That's just kind of a thing about being a scientist. You guys really do. You shut it down, right? At night? Anyway. If you were to shut it down, that's what it would look like. So the small molecule that we're talking about is by a company called PTC. They're in New Jersey. And remember branaplam, which was an oral drug that Novartis tested, which was kind of actually, they were almost using the side effect of the drug rather than the actual design drug designed for purpose for HD. PTC is the kind of HD specific version of that. So the team leading that took a similar kind of a drug and turned it and tweaked it and worked on it for years and made this really refined version of that. And what this does is it stops the Huntington mRNA from getting made. And that means that you could take a pill or a little syrup and drink it, and it would lower Huntington, not just in your brain, but throughout your entire body, which might be important for things like muscle problems that happen in HD patients. We just don't know. So this is a really exciting new approach. There is 162 people in an early phase study. This was initially going to be launched in the US and Europe. And with daily dosing for 12 weeks. This is an early trial, so the real goal is to see if it's safe. With branaplam, remember there was that peripheral neuropathy, no one wants that, so these people are being watched really carefully. We don't know anything positively, but we do know that so far, no news is good news in the sense of like not having that kind of a treatment that happened in branaplam. And this initial phase 1/2 study will be done in mid 2023. Oh, that's wrong.
Yeah. Well, that's not right. I think that's supposed to say 2024.
Yeah.
It's underway anyway, well underway. And what's next?
I'm so triggered by noises coming on now. I'm like, my fight or flight right now. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I never thought I'd be glad to hear the Nicaraguan national anthem instead of this horrific beep. Anyway, Annexon.
There's a company called Annexon who's testing a totally novel approach. So their approach is to try to bolster synapses within the brain. So synapses, let's be easy with the sudden loud noises here. We have our brains are amazingly complicated. You have 84 billion neurons in your brain, the nerve cells that talk to each other to make you speak and remember and navigate and all the cool things people do. And what's even more amazing is that what makes them do their job is not just the fact that they're there and they live there like little cells, it's the connections that they have between, they have trillions, you have trillions of connections in between the brains, cells in your brain, and that's where the communication happens. And the connection is called a synapse. It just means where one neuron bumps into another neuron to talk to it. So those critical points of communication are where brain cells actually talk to one another, and all of the cool stuff that your brain does emerges from that. Annexon has a drug that tries to help enhance and make synapses work better. and reduce the breakdown in communication that can happen between them. We're told that there's like a bridge or two nearby that you don't want to try to cross at rush hour. So if synapses are blocked and they can't talk to one another, nothing in your brain can work right, because that's how your brain works, is by having brain cells talk to each other over synapses. And an exons drug will hopefully reduce this breakdown in communication between brain cells, and will hopefully be in the clinic soon. So totally other way of approaching HD. It's not Huntington lowering. It's a totally separate approach.
Jeff, what's the big picture here?
The big picture is this, and I hope that people remember this from Ray's talk yesterday. There are dozens and dozens of companies working on HD. Now, when I first got to HD, I remember I went to my first hereditary disease conference in like 2008, and there was a guy from Novartis there, and everyone was like, oh, hey, there's a guy from Novartis, the guy from pharma here. Like, it was this like exciting, they weren't doing anything yet, but it was like, oh, there's a pharma guy here. They're knocking down the door to come to HD now, these pharma companies. And why? Because you guys have seen how difficult it's been in Alzheimer's disease, right? In HD, yeah, it's smaller population, but you know with 100% certainty who's going to get sick and roughly when, right? And all of us have contributed tens of thousands of patient years to these databases like Enroll that let scientists say, okay, here's exactly what we expect from someone with an HD mutation, and if I give a drug and it gets a little better, I'll be able to tell because I know what the baseline is. That's why HD is such a sort of darling of the pharma company right now, and it's a very weird switch. I'm so happy about it.
Jeff, thanks. I learned my fake gravitas voice from the very best. Now I think it's time for our final visit from our roving, intrepid, outside-the-box reporter, Dr. Leora Fox. Leora, can you hear us?
Hello, everyone. As you can see, I've been blown across the nation to join you in Niagara. And I want to tell you now about another important area of HD research that has expanded over the last few years. It's a concept known as somatic instability, and it refers to how CAG repeats can be unstable over time. When a person with HD gets a blood test to determine their CAG repeat number, we've tended to assume that that number stays stable over the course of their life, and it does in the blood. But what we've learned in recent years is that the CAG repeat can expand in certain cells of the body, and notably within those vulnerable brain cells in the striatum. There's more and more evidence that these super expanded repeats might be causing the loss of brain cells, leading to earlier onset of HD symptoms. It could even help to explain a long-standing question in HD research. Why do two people with the same CAG repeat number sometimes get symptoms many years apart? Scientists are really interested in why the CAG repeats are getting longer and how we can interfere to delay the onset of HD. HD geneticists have studied thousands of samples of blood and brain tissue donated by HD family members, and they've worked out tiny changes in other genes that might be influencing the expansion of CAGs. A lot of the genes they've identified play a role in repairing DNA, and when DNA repair goes awry is when those CAG repeats can get longer in brain cells. One of the genes they identified is called MSH3, and this gene has become the target of several drugs in development for HD. For example, earlier this year, we heard from scientists at Pfizer and at Locus 23 Therapeutics, who are developing drugs aimed at MSH3 to try and stop the expansion of CAG repeats. This path from biology to new drug would not have been possible without the many participants from HD families who generously donated their time and their blood samples to help move HD research forward. I'm Leora Fox, reporting for HDBuzz, and I'll see you on the other side.
Wow, she made it. And she's here right, no, she's not. She's at home she's still in Albuquerque. The whole thing was a sham. I'm very disillusioned. Okay, well, that's the end of the news updates that we have for you guys. But I would like to finish. No, I want to finish with a heartfelt piece to camera in the news tradition. This has all been a bit of knockabout fun, but it has been. We have had to deal with some really bad news. We were all dealing with HD. And then a pandemic happened, and so suddenly there's two things trying to kill everyone. And everyone had to stay at home, and we couldn't hug each other, which, as we've heard, is kind of a big thing for this community. And scientists like to get together and drink wine and tell each other the secrets, and that's how progress happens. And we weren't able to do that. True. When the news about Rush and then Wave, like a week later, dropped in the middle of the pandemic, it was really heartbreaking. And it's all very well for people like me or scientists to say, you got to get back on the horse, you got to dig deep. Like, there comes a point where you've done all the digging you've got, and there's nothing left. And yet, we did it. We made it through to today. And the crucial thing about all of these disappointments is that behind them is a ton of data and a ton of science that has happened, and it's some of the most precious science that we have, because it was real biology that happened within the bodies and brains of HD people. And the only way in which a trial truly fails is if we don't learn everything possible from it, is if we don't make the most of the sacrifices and the commitment and time that the patients especially and their families have put into it. And that's what we've seen, not just with tominersen, but with the Wave compounds and with branaplam and everything else. Digging into the data has told us a lot more about how better to design future trials, future drugs. And now we're going into this next generation of Huntington lowering trials and other trials with a much better idea of how to, for instance, how to find the right dose, how to choose the right patient group, how to monitor safety as well as potential success of these drugs. So we learn, we build, we move on, and eventually we get to meet in person here in Nicaragua and hug each other. There are a few constants as well that we can always rely on. Number one is that we know the cause of every case of Huntington's disease, and we've known it since 1993, 30 years. It was 2015 that the first dose of a Huntington lowering drug was given. 2017 was the first time that we were able to report that we have successfully lowered Huntington. And those are things that we have accomplished as a community that can never be taken away from us. We can go back to those touchstones of certain knowledge. Whatever happens next, this is stuff that we know for sure, and it's stuff that gives us a huge advantage when it comes to HD research. I'll just revisit this slide of all of these companies. This is incredible. I spoke at another rare disease meeting a couple of weeks ago, a condition called Kennedy's disease, which is... Kennedy's disease is another CAG repeat disease that only affects boys and men because it's on the Y chromosome, which turns embryos into boys at birth. And they couldn't believe how many. It's only slightly less common than Huntington's disease, but it's there's almost no drug companies involved in Kennedy's disease, and their big kind of push has been, how do we get more drug companies involved? And the answer is, it's stuff like Enroll HD. Enroll is the machine that is at the heart of the HD research sphere. So if you're not part of Enroll, please consider signing up. If you are part of Enroll, please try and make your annual follow-ups if you possibly can, because this database of nearly 30,000 people is what is really attracting drug companies to HD. The first thing they do when they're thinking about studying a disease, number one, do we have relevant biology? Is this a disease we think we can target? Number two, how many patients are there? How active are the patients? What stages are they at? What medications are they taking? And are they active in research? And if you can present them with a database of 30,000 people, it helps them design their trial. They can run artificial trials in computers to figure out how to recruit and where and which sites and everything. And it's such a huge advantage. So give yourselves and give everyone in Enroll HD a round of applause, because it's huge. It's completely transformative. And for those of you who have the time and inclination and enthusiasm to take part in drug trials, the HDSA, just across the river, has this HD Trial Finder, which also covers Canada. So if you are interested in taking part in trials, speak to your local clinic, but also check out, just put HD Trial Finder into Google. I know that the HSC has a map of trial sites as well, which is currently being updated. The two of them together make a great resource, and if you want to know in much more detail, you can go to clinicaltrials.gov, which is the US government's registry, and just type Huntington's disease into the search, and you'll find out what's happening. I just want to quickly mention a study that I'm involved in. I'm the chief investigator of HD Clarity, which is a study running in multiple nations, including Canada, where we collect spinal fluid to study Huntington's disease and to develop what Ray Truant mentioned yesterday, biomarkers for Huntington's disease, which are measurements that help us to figure out what's going on in the brain. A lot of our understanding of what happened in all of these trials has come from biomarker research and using these biomarkers to figure out what's happening in the brains and bodies when these drugs are introduced. So hdclarity.net, if you think you might be up for having some of your spinal fluid tapped, a little bit like a maple tree. But we don't use an axe. And finally, HDBuzz was invented, spurred by the enthusiasm of Charles. Ed and Jeff launched it over 10 years ago, and the HSC was one of our original founding partners. HSC has been with us all the way, and it's a partnership that we're immensely proud of. Back in the day, they didn't really know who Ed and Jeff were, but they took a leap of faith in supporting us to set up this resource. And we look at the traffic stats, it's like 500,000 people every month are visiting the website from across the world. And we know that we need to continue making this source of reliable research news available, and it will be as long as it is needed. Hopefully we'll be able to shut it down someday because HD has been cured. We're not there yet, but we believe, all scientists believe, a good news day is coming. Hopefully there's been some good news here along the way, and also a bit of resources for turning bad news into good. And with that, I will draw the evening news to a close. Thank you for your attention. Apologies for the unscheduled delay, and have a great day. Please stand for the Nicaraguan national anthem.
Yeah, it's good.
Oh, thank you. How very kind. Goodness me, it's heavy. I'll need to.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to exceed my baggage
wow.
allowance.
Thank you so much.
I have a lot of baggage.
I'd just like to say thank you. I would just like to say thank you one more time to the team from HDBuzz. Such an informative, entertaining, and I guess, for lack of a better word, incendiary.
Yeah, we'll take it.
One more time, a round of applause, please.
Jeff's leaving the stage.
Does anybody have any questions?
I forgot about Q&A.
There's a question at the back. Tam's going to run to you with a mic.
Ooh, it's hot. Me and putting my hair back on is not a valid question. It's hot up here, man. There's lights.
I just wanted to ask you if I could take you out to dinner, Jeff.
My wife's in the front, but she's open-minded, so.
I can recommend a couple of apps that might help you.
Glad we can focus on the serious issues at hand in the HD community.
We do have questions.
Hi, I just wondered, with all of the pharmaceutical companies that are working towards a cure, is there cooperation between them? Do you know if there's cooperation between them?
There is, there absolutely is. I mean, obviously, they exist to make money, but they exist to make money through improving people's lives. And they are in the field because of everything that has been produced by the community, including other drug companies. So, for instance, if you're Wave, you're going to be looking at Roche's results and thinking, how can we learn from their experience to make our trial better? So there's a bit of sort of passive learning that they do from each other, but there's also active cooperation which happens. So a really good example of that is it's something called HDRSC, which is the Regulatory Science Consortium. So that's basically a formal organization consisting of drug companies and academics, which meets regularly and is basically kind of an interface with the FDA and other regulators like the European Medicines Agency. And so it's a kind of non-competitive space in which data and samples and expertise can be shared so that all of the drug companies that want the FDA to move on things like preventative trials in HD, they can present their case with one clear voice and really kind of move the needle on those kind of regulatory issues. Another example is a project I've been involved in with Roche is the digital biomarker project involving smartwatches and smartphones, which was deployed throughout the Tominersen program. And Roche has basically said, we've developed this digital biomarker platform for measuring movements and stuff sort of automatically in the person's home. We will make that platform available if anyone else wants to use it in their trial. So it's kind of, they don't want to give their competitors an advantage, but there is a recognition that there's a degree of sharing which helps everyone, and it's kind of a rising tide floats all the boats, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The question right there in the front.
I've noticed that a lot of the information is for 18 and older. Is there any way people younger than 18 can get more involved?
Involved in research? Yes. Now, Nooper, if you're still here, you'll have to tell me, is Enroll HD available for under 18s?
If they had genetic testing.
Okay, so you can be involved in Enroll HD if you've had a genetic test, which is a very rare situation. So those would basically largely be cases of juvenile onset Huntington's disease. It's slightly difficult. HD Clarity is another where we are able to enroll people below the age of 18, but only if they've had a positive genetic test for HD. It's a bit difficult, and it's basically to do with informed consent. Now, clearly, someone under the age of 18 can give informed consent for many things, or indeed there are ways of involving younger people in research with the assent of their parents. But I think, largely speaking, big research projects tend to be focused on one set of criteria that works everywhere in the world, and there'd be some places where there'd be a sort of strict cutoff, or it would kind of be impossible to do that research under 18. What I would say, though, is that you may find that there are projects local to you that are specifically aimed at capturing the experiences or the biology of people under the age of 18. So don't give up hope. Maybe speak to your local HD clinic or researchers in Canada and see what they might have on offer. Don't know if you guys have any thoughts.
I was going to just add, reaching out to folks at YPAD and HDO is like a great way to kind of get access to ways that you can get involved in research. And the other thing is, you just being here is you being involved in research, right? Because you are now learning, hopefully learning from our slightly ragtag presentation, something, and then you can tell people about it. You can tell your friends, your family about things like Enroll and all these other studies. That is being an active participant in HD research. So don't forget that. You're already doing it.
Yeah, we're on the same page. I was.
Yeah.
I was going to say that, like, you know, we keep bragging about this huge set of data that HD families have put together, right? And that happens because of the HD community itself, right? Like Enroll HD as a platform is amazing, but the community is what empowers that. And there's a huge YPAD crew here, right? There's like 75 people. Is that? I mean, coming to meetings and connecting when you're younger is the basis of that community. And I hope you guys are amazing, but I would love to not have to be together with this amazing community. But until we're done, until there's effective treatments, the community is what's going to empower them. And being involved as a young person and connecting with fellow young people is like building that platform for the future. So that's just as important as being in a study.
And that's all we have time for. Thank you very much once again. We'll be around all day. We love you.